We must be willing to let go of the life we planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us. Joseph Campbell. This video reached you because your old self is running out of time. Ever feel trapped in the same patterns? What if letting go shifts reality instantly? Stay, because the observer effect proves everything changes the moment you change how you see yourself. Have you ever noticed how two people can walk into the same room, experience the exact same event, and walk out with completely different stories? One says it was inspiring, while the other insists it was boring or even unpleasant. What's happening here isn't just personal preference, it's a perfect example of how observation shapes reality. This idea, known as the observer effect, comes from the world of quantum physics, but has profound implications for your everyday life. In physics, experiments showed that subatomic particles behaved differently depending on whether they were being observed. When scientists looked at them, they acted one way. When they weren't being observed, they acted another. It was as if the very act of observation influenced the outcome. Now, while most of us aren't running quantum experiments in a lab, the principle carries over into the way we live. Your focus, your attention, your expectations, these aren't passive. They actively influence the results you experience. Think about a time you expected something to go wrong. Maybe it was a job interview, a first date, or even just a conversation with someone difficult. Because you already anticipated a negative outcome, your nervous energy, tone, and body language carried that belief into the interaction. And often, the outcome matched your fears. On the other hand, when you walk into a situation confident, open, and ready to see the best, people respond to that energy. It's not magic, it's the natural feedback loop of the observer effect in action. What this means is that reality is not as rigid and fixed as we were taught to believe. It bends, in subtle ways, to the lens through which you see it. This doesn't mean you can snap your fingers and instantly control everything around you. But it does mean that your state of observation, the way you choose to see yourself, other people, and your circumstances, plays a far bigger role in shaping reality than most of us realize. The beauty of this is that you don't need advanced degrees or years of training to use it. Start noticing what you're looking for in daily life. Do you expect people to annoy you, or do you expect to meet kindness? Do you approach challenges believing they'll defeat you, or believing they'll reveal your strength? Your expectation acts like a magnet, pulling matching experiences toward you. When you understand the observer effect, you begin to realize that awareness isn't passive, it's creative. Every time you observe with intention, you are participating in the unfolding of reality. And if you can shift your focus from limitation to possibility, you begin to witness doors opening where before there seemed to be only walls. If the observer effect shows us that our focus shapes reality, then identity is the lens through which that focus gets filtered. In other words, who you believe you are becomes the limit of what you allow yourself to see, experience, and create. Identity acts like the operating system of your mind. It runs quietly in the background, setting boundaries for what feels possible, safe, or even imaginable. Think about how you describe yourself. Maybe you say, "I'm shy, I'm unlucky in relationships, or I'm not good with money." These aren't just harmless labels, they are powerful declarations that reinforce how you interact with life. The subconscious takes those statements as commands, and then it organizes your behavior, perceptions, and even your memory to match. Over time, your external world begins to mirror those internal labels. This is why two people with the same potential can live entirely different lives, because they see themselves through radically different identities. Psychology confirms this through the concept of self-schema, mental frameworks that shape how we process information about ourselves. If you've built an identity around being the responsible one, you'll notice situations that confirm that role, and you'll unconsciously ignore or downplay anything that suggests otherwise. Your brain seeks consistency because familiarity feels safe, even if it keeps you stuck. A classic example is the person who has always been the underdog. Even when opportunities to succeed appear, they may hesitate, self-sabotage, or dismiss them because stepping into success contradicts their old identity. On the flip side, when someone holds the identity of "I always figure things out," setbacks don't crush them. Instead, those same challenges become evidence of resilience. Identity, not circumstance, often determines the outcome. The tricky part is that many of our identities aren't consciously chosen, they're inherited. Family dynamics, cultural conditioning, and early experiences subtly program us to adopt roles we never questioned. Maybe you grew up being told you were too quiet, so you carried that identity into adulthood, even though it no longer serves you. Or maybe society reinforced the idea that wealth is for other people, so you unconsciously block opportunities that could change your financial reality. The good news is that identity isn't fixed, it's fluid. Just as you once adopted beliefs about yourself, you can release and reshape them. The first step is awareness, noticing the stories you tell yourself daily. Are they empowering or are they limiting? Once you catch the old scripts, you can begin to rewrite them. Small shifts in self-definition, changing "I'm not confident" into "I'm learning to express myself more openly," open entirely new pathways for action and possibility. Identity locks reality, but only if you keep the key in the lock. The moment you choose to redefine who you are, you unlock the door to a reality that matches the new version of you. If identity is the lock on your reality, then letting go is the key that frees it. Most people assume transformation comes from adding more knowledge, more effort, more strategies. But in truth, the deepest breakthroughs often come from subtraction. Letting go of what no longer serves you creates space for what you truly desire to enter. Why is this so hard? Because the mind clings to familiarity, even when it hurts. The ego would rather hold onto a painful certainty than step into an unknown possibility. That's why people stay in jobs that drain them, relationships that diminish them, or habits that keep them small. It feels safer to hold onto what's known than to trust the void that comes with release. But here's the paradox. The moment you unclench your grip, energy flows again. Think of a clenched fist holding tightly to an old object. As long as you refuse to open your hand, nothing new can be placed there. Life works the same way. Holding onto old identities, grudges, or outdated dreams keeps your hands full. Letting go doesn't mean failure, it means making room for what's next. There are countless examples of this truth. Maybe you've heard of someone who finally walked away from a toxic job, uncertain about what would come next. Within weeks, they landed an opportunity that aligned perfectly with their passions. Or someone who released the bitterness of a broken relationship, only to discover peace and even love waiting on the other side. These moments aren't coincidences, they're the natural openings that occur when energy isn't trapped in the past. Letting go also has a deeper psychological and spiritual dimension. Every time you release an attachment to who you thought you had to be or to outcomes you were forcing, you reclaim your power. You stop trying to control life and instead begin to align with it. This shift from control to surrender is where transformation accelerates. It's like dropping a heavy backpack you didn't realize you were carrying. Suddenly, the path feels lighter and you can move forward with ease. Practically, letting go might look like forgiving someone who will never apologize, choosing to stop replaying old mistakes, or simply deciding you don't need to prove yourself anymore. Each release, no matter how small, sends a signal to your subconscious. I trust that something better is waiting. The real power of letting go is that it doesn't just free you emotionally, it rearranges your external reality. Once your energy isn't tied to old stories, you become available for the opportunities, people, and experiences that match your higher self. And that's when life begins to surprise you in ways you never thought possible. If you've ever felt like life keeps handing you the same experiences over and over, despite your best efforts to change, there's a reason. The outer world isn't random, it mirrors the energy of your inner world. Consciousness projects outward, and reality reflects it back like a cosmic mirror. This means your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs don't just stay inside of you, they radiate outward and set the tone for what you attract. Think about how people respond differently depending on your energy. Walk into a room anxious and self-conscious, and others will often pick up on that tension, even if you don't say a word. Walk into the same room calm and grounded, and people instinctively feel more at ease around you. It's not about pretending, it's about the energy you're carrying, because energy communicates louder than words. This principle is often called the law of resonance. Whatever frequency you hold becomes the signal the world tunes into. If your inner dialogue is dominated by lack, I never have enough, things never work out for me, life reflects that back through missed opportunities or constant struggle. But when your inner state shifts toward abundance, gratitude, and possibility, new doors begin to open, often in unexpected ways. It's similar to adjusting a radio. If you're tuned into a station broadcasting fear, you'll keep hearing the music of fear. If you change the dial to love, hope, or creativity, the whole broadcast shifts. The external world didn't change, you just tuned your consciousness to a different signal, and now reality mirrors that new frequency. Psychology calls this the self-fulfilling prophecy. Your expectations influence your behavior, and your behavior influences outcomes. For example, if you believe people can't be trusted, you'll act distant or suspicious. Others, sensing your guardedness, may pull away, confirming your belief. But if you shift your energy to one of openness, you'll often find people meeting you with warmth and trust. The exciting part is that you don't need to wait for circumstances to shift before you do. You can consciously choose to carry the energy of who you want to become. If you want more peace, begin cultivating inner calm now. If you want more opportunities, embody the energy of curiosity and confidence today. Reality, like a mirror, doesn't show you what you want, it shows you what you are being. This isn't about perfection or fake positivity, it's about honest awareness. By noticing the energy you broadcast and making intentional adjustments, you stop living as a victim of circumstances and start living as a conscious creator. And once you align your energy with the life you desire, reality can't help but reflect that alignment back to you. One of the biggest obstacles to transformation isn't just our thoughts, it's the emotions we've become addicted to. Yes, addicted. Just like the body craves sugar or caffeine, it can crave familiar emotional states, even the ones that hurt. Fear, anger, guilt, or worry may feel uncomfortable, but if you've lived with them long enough, your nervous system registers them as normal. This is why change can feel so difficult. Your body is wired to pull you back into the same emotional loops. Think of a person who always feels stressed at work. Even on vacation, when everything is calm, their mind unconsciously seeks out something to stress about. Why? Because stress has become a habitual state. The body expects the chemical cocktail of stress hormones and will nudge the mind to create situations that reproduce it. This is how emotional addiction keeps us trapped in the old self. The problem is that these emotions anchor you to the past. Every time you replay anger from yesterday or guilt from years ago, your body can't tell the difference between memory and present moment. It relives the old story, reinforcing the same identity and keeping you locked in the same version of reality. Breaking this cycle requires awareness and conscious interruption. First, you need to notice your triggers. What situations, people, or even thoughts pull you back into the same emotions? Once you recognize the pattern, you can pause before falling into it. Something as simple as a deep breath, a short walk, or writing down your feelings can act as a reset button. These micro-interruptions begin to rewire the brain. Another powerful tool is mindfulness. Instead of resisting the emotion or labeling it as bad, observe it with curiosity. Ask yourself, where do I feel this in my body? What story am I attaching to it? By observing instead of reacting, you break the automatic loop. The emotion no longer controls you, you witness it, and in witnessing, you begin to dissolve its grip. Over time, as you practice interrupting old patterns, your nervous system learns to regulate in new ways. The body adapts to peace, gratitude, or empowerment as its new normal. And when your baseline emotion shifts, your identity shifts. Suddenly, the old self who was addicted to stress, fear, or guilt no longer feels familiar. This process isn't about suppressing emotions, but about breaking their unconscious hold. By stepping out of habitual emotional loops, you create space for higher states of being. Imagine what becomes possible when instead of reacting out of anger or worry, you respond from clarity, trust, or love. That's when the old you truly begins to fade, and reality shifts to reflect the new emotional signature you're embodying. If your emotions form the fuel of your reality, then self-perception is the steering wheel. How you see yourself determines where you can go, what you'll attempt, and what you'll allow yourself to receive. The tricky part, most people don't question their self-image. They walk through life assuming, this is just who I am, not realizing that identity is a choice, not a sentence. Think about how a single belief about yourself can shape your world. If you see yourself as unworthy, you'll unconsciously shrink in opportunities, avoid risks, and tolerate relationships that don't honor you. On the other hand, if you begin to see yourself as someone capable and deserving, your choices expand. You start saying yes to new paths, no to what drains you, and reality adjusts to this new level of self-respect. Self-perception is powerful because it's subtle. It doesn't just influence what you do, it influences what you even notice. For example, two people can walk into the same networking event. One sees themselves as awkward and unlikable, so they interpret neutral glances as rejection and leave early. The other sees themselves as magnetic and interesting, so they interpret the same glances as curiosity, sparking conversations that lead to opportunities. Same event, same people, different outcomes, shaped by self-perception. The shift begins when you stop asking, "What do I want?" and start asking, "Who am I becoming?" Goals are external, but identity is internal. A person who says, "I want to get fit," may struggle because the identity of someone who wants still assumes they aren't fit. But when they shift to, "I am becoming someone who values health," their actions naturally align with that identity. Self-perception drives behavior far more powerfully than willpower alone. One practical way to shift perception is through visualization. Not the vague, imagine a dream life kind, but embodying how it feels to be that version of yourself. Close your eyes and imagine walking through your day as your higher self. How do you speak? How do you carry yourself? What do you no longer tolerate? When you repeatedly step into that state mentally and emotionally, your nervous system begins to recognize it as familiar, making it easier to embody in real life. Another key is language. The words you use about yourself sculpt your identity. Every time you say, "I'm terrible with money," or "I'm always unlucky," you reinforce that identity. Shift your language to reflect growth. "I'm learning how to manage money," or "good things are beginning to happen for me." It's not pretending, it's retraining your self-perception toward expansion. Ultimately, shifting self-perception is about claiming authorship of your identity instead of recycling the one handed to you. When you consciously choose to see yourself differently, you unlock new behaviors, attract new experiences, and step into realities that were invisible before. The question isn't, "Can I change my life?" The real question is, "Can I allow myself to see who I truly am?" If self-perception is the lens you see yourself through, then belief systems are the architecture holding that lens in place. Beliefs are the invisible blueprints of your life, silently shaping how you think, act, and interpret the world. The most surprising part, most of your beliefs weren't consciously chosen. They were inherited from family, culture, education, and countless experiences you absorbed without realizing. Beliefs work like mental filters. Imagine wearing glasses with tinted lenses. If the lenses are red, the whole world looks red, even though it is. In the same way, if you hold a belief like life is a struggle, then every challenge will confirm it, and every success will feel temporary. On the flip side, if you carry the belief "I am supported by life," you'll interpret obstacles as detours, not dead ends. The outer world doesn't change, the filter does. Many of these beliefs form early, often before we have the ability to question them. A child told, "Money doesn't grow on trees," may grow up equating wealth with scarcity. Someone repeatedly told, "You're difficult," may carry that identity into adulthood, sabotaging relationships. These hidden programs run in the background, guiding choices and reinforcing the old you without you even noticing. The good news is that beliefs aren't permanent. They are conclusions you once drew, not ultimate truths, and conclusions can be rewritten. The process begins with awareness. Start noticing the rules you live by. "I'm not the type of person who," or "things never work out for me." These statements reveal the silent contracts you've made with yourself. Ask, "Who told me this? Is it absolutely true? And what would happen if I believed the opposite?" A powerful way to shift beliefs is through evidence gathering. Instead of trying to force yourself to believe something new instantly, look for small examples that support the new belief. If you want to adopt the belief, "I attract opportunities easily," start noticing the small opportunities that already show up: an unexpected conversation, a piece of helpful advice, or even a moment of synchronicity. Over time, your brain begins to rewire, recognizing that the new belief has evidence to stand on. Beliefs are also contagious. The people you spend time with either reinforce your current system or challenge you to expand. If everyone around you believes success requires exhaustion, you'll likely mirror that. But if you surround yourself with people who see success as aligned and joyful, your beliefs stretch to accommodate that possibility. Ultimately, belief systems are not cages, they're scaffolding. They can be dismantled, rebuilt, and reshaped into structures that support the life you actually want. When you consciously upgrade your beliefs, you upgrade the possibilities available to you. And once you stop asking, "Is this belief true?" and start asking, "Is this belief useful?" you reclaim the power to design a reality that matches your highest vision. One of the most liberating ideas to come from modern science and spiritual insight is this: reality isn't fixed. It's fluid, dynamic, and filled with infinite possibilities. In quantum physics, particles don't exist in just one state until they're observed. They exist in multiple potential states at once. Only when attention is placed on them do they collapse into a definite outcome. Now take that principle and apply it to your life. Every version of you, the one who plays it safe, the one who thrives, the one who transforms everything, is already a possibility. Which version solidifies depends on where you place your focus. Most of us live as though reality is predetermined. This is just how things are, and this is who I am. But in truth, life is more like a field of probabilities, waiting to be selected by your choices and your consciousness. Every decision you make, no matter how small, is like casting a vote for a particular version of reality. Choosing to wake up earlier, choosing to forgive, choosing to take a risk, all of these collapse one set of possibilities while opening others. Consider this: two people may face the same setback, like losing a job. One collapses into the version of reality that says, "I'm a failure, nothing works out." The other collapses into, "This is the doorway to something better." Both interpretations exist as possibilities. The difference is in which one they choose to observe, embody, and act from. This is why it's so crucial to shift from being a passive experiencer of life to being a conscious creator. Instead of asking, "What's going to happen to me?" begin asking, "Which version of reality am I aligning with today?" This mindset transforms your role from victim of circumstance to participant in creation. It doesn't mean you can control every detail of life. Uncertainty is still part of the game, but it does mean you have far more influence than you think. Your choices, thoughts, and emotions are like tuning forks that vibrate with one possible outcome and silence the rest. By choosing differently, you start vibrating with realities you once thought were out of reach. To practice this, begin noticing your default choices. Are you aligning with the version of yourself that stays small or the one that expands? Each moment is an invitation to collapse into a higher possibility. Even choosing to see yourself as capable in a situation where you once felt powerless shifts, which reality begins to unfold. Quantum possibilities remind us that change doesn't have to be linear or gradual. It can be instant. The moment you stop identifying with the old self and step into the energy of the new one, life reorganizes to match. And once you realize you're surrounded by infinite potential at all times, you'll never again feel stuck in a single version of reality. If quantum possibilities mean infinite paths are available, then comfort zones are the invisible fences that keep you walking the same narrow trail over and over. A comfort zone isn't just a familiar environment, it's a familiar identity. It's the collection of habits, thoughts, and emotional patterns that feel safe, even when they're limiting. And the sabotage is subtle. You don't even realize how much you're shrinking to fit inside it. Why do we cling to comfort zones? The brain is wired for survival, not expansion. It prefers the predictable, even if predictable means pain. That's why someone can stay in a job they hate for years, telling themselves, "At least I know what to expect," while ignoring the possibility of joy elsewhere. Or why a person remains in a relationship that drains them because it's better than being alone. The comfort zone whispers, "This is safe, don't risk the unknown." But what it really means is, stay small so nothing changes. The silent sabotage shows up in many disguises. Procrastination often isn't laziness. It's the comfort zone resisting action that could expand you. Overthinking isn't intelligence. It's the mind looping to avoid risk. Even self-sabotage behaviors like binging, avoidance, or picking fights are often just unconscious strategies to keep you within the walls of the familiar. Yet growth only happens outside the comfort zone. Every breakthrough you've ever had, learning to ride a bike, speaking up in a room, saying yes to something scary, required stepping into discomfort. At first it felt awkward, maybe even terrifying, but that very stretch was the sign you were expanding into a new identity. Discomfort is not a danger signal, it's a growth signal. Think of a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. Inside the cocoon, the old form literally dissolves into chaos before reorganizing into wings. If it resisted that process, it would never fly. In the same way, stepping out of your comfort zone feels like chaos at first, but it's the very process that creates transformation. Practical steps to outgrow your comfort zone don't have to be dramatic. Start with micro stretches, speak up once when you'd normally stay silent, try a new activity instead of repeating your routine, or say yes to an opportunity that scares you just a little. Each time you do, your nervous system expands its tolerance for uncertainty. What once felt impossible slowly becomes natural. The truth is, comfort zones aren't really safe. They're cages disguised as safety. They protect you from growth, not from danger. And the longer you stay in them, the more life feels stagnant. But the moment you choose to stretch beyond them, reality begins to surprise you. Opportunities, people, and experiences that were invisible from inside the cage suddenly come into view. Stepping out of comfort zones isn't about reckless leaps, it's about courageous expansions. And each time you do, you reclaim a piece of the life that was waiting for you beyond the fence. When people imagine transformation, they often picture a dramatic before and after. One day, everything changes, a sudden breakthrough, an overnight success, a miraculous shift. And while quantum leaps do happen, they are almost always built on the foundation of micro-shifts. These small, consistent changes may not feel exciting in the moment, but they accumulate into momentum that makes quantum leaps inevitable. A micro-shift is a subtle adjustment in thought, behavior, or energy that aligns you closer to your desired reality. It might be as simple as getting up 10 minutes earlier to meditate, replacing one negative thought with a neutral one, or saying no to something that drains you. Alone, these actions seem minor, but stacked over days, weeks, and months, they rewire your identity. They prove to your subconscious that you are becoming someone new. For example, someone who wants to embody abundance may start by practicing gratitude for small daily blessings. At first, it doesn't feel like much, but over time, this rewires the mind to see opportunities instead of lack. Eventually, when a big opportunity appears, they're prepared to recognize and act on it. That's when a micro-shift becomes a quantum leap, the sudden external breakthrough that looks instant but was actually years in the making. The trap many fall into is dismissing micro-shifts because they seem too small. They think, this one choice won't matter. But the reality is that every micro-shift is a vote for the version of reality you want to step into. Each new choice is like laying a brick. One brick doesn't build a house, but thousands of them do. Without the small shifts, the leap has no foundation. At the same time, it's important to recognize the moments when a leap is possible. Sometimes life presents a doorway that requires bold action, a sudden opportunity, a chance to relocate, a moment to finally speak your truth. These leaps feel risky, but they are often the culmination of all the small shifts you've been making behind the scenes. Without those micro-preparations, the leap would collapse. With them, it becomes sustainable. Both paths, micro-shifts and quantum leaps, are essential. Micro-shifts keep you moving steadily forward, proving to your subconscious that you are capable of change. Quantum leaps accelerate you into timelines you couldn't reach gradually. Together, they form a rhythm of growth, steady steps punctuated by breakthrough moments. So instead of asking, when will my big breakthrough happen? Start asking, what small shift can I make today that aligns me with the life I want? Because every micro-choice is a seed, and one day, one of those seeds will blossom into a leap that transforms everything. Shifting identity and making micro-changes is powerful, but true transformation happens when you begin to embody the version of yourself you want to become. Embodiment means you don't just think about the new self, you live as them, right here, right now. Instead of waiting for external proof before believing, you bring that energy into your daily actions until reality has no choice but to reflect it back. This is different from pretending. Pretending feels fake, like forcing yourself into a mask. Embodiment is alignment. It's choosing to act, think, and carry yourself in a way that matches the reality you want to create, even before the evidence shows up. If you desire to be confident, you don't wait until the crowd applauds. You start speaking, standing, and moving as someone who already owns their worth. One of the most effective ways to embody the new self is through state rehearsal. Imagine your future self walking into a room. How do they hold themselves? How do they speak? What choices do they make without hesitation? Now begin to practice those behaviors in small, everyday ways. The brain doesn't distinguish much between imagined and lived experiences. Repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity becomes identity. Language also plays a key role in embodiment. Notice how often you use disempowering phrases like, "I hope I can," or "I'll try." Your new self doesn't try, they do. Start shifting your vocabulary to reflect certainty. I am becoming, I choose, I create. The words you speak program your subconscious, and when your language aligns with your desired identity, your actions naturally follow. Another powerful anchor is environment. If your physical surroundings reflect the old you, it's harder to sustain the new. Small environmental upgrades, a cleaner workspace, a wardrobe that matches your future self, or even curating who you spend time with, signal to your subconscious that you're serious about this shift. The new self doesn't just live in your head, they exist in your space. Most importantly, embodiment requires consistency. The old self will try to pull you back with familiar emotions and doubts, but each time you choose the new response, even in the smallest way, you reinforce the reality of the new self. Over time, these consistent choices create a tipping point where the old identity no longer feels natural and the new one becomes effortless. The secret is this: reality doesn't give you permission to embody the new self after things change. Things change because you embodied the new self first. When you consistently live as if you are already aligned with your highest version, life organizes itself around that truth. Embodiment isn't about waiting, it's about becoming here and now. Have you ever noticed that right when you're about to make progress, life seems to get harder, doubts creep in, old problems resurface, and unexpected obstacles appear? It can feel like the universe is pushing back, but in reality, what you're experiencing is resistance, the final defense of the old self. The ego thrives on familiarity. It doesn't care if your patterns make you miserable, it only cares that they're predictable. So when you begin to step into a new version of yourself, the ego panics. It whispers, "Who do you think you are?" or "This will never work." It creates emotional turbulence, fear, procrastination, self-doubt, as a way of pulling you back into the safety of the old identity. This stage is often called the ego backlash, or in spiritual traditions, the dark night of the soul. It's the period where everything feels like it's falling apart right before it actually comes together. For example, someone who decides to leave behind toxic relationships might suddenly feel lonelier than ever. A person pursuing a new career path might face an unexpected setback right after committing. These moments aren't proof you're failing, they're evidence you're on the threshold of a breakthrough. Think of it like a rubber band. The more you stretch it toward a new possibility, the more tension builds. That tension is resistance. If you interpret it as a sign to stop, you snap back to your old comfort zone. But if you hold steady through the tension, eventually the band releases and you catapult into the new reality. Resistance can also show up in subtle ways: distractions, sudden busyness, or even physical fatigue. These are not random, they are the mind's attempt to protect you from change. The key is to recognize them for what they are, a signal that you're closer than ever to transformation. So how do you move through resistance? First, expect it. When you know it's part of the process, you won't be blindsided. Second, practice grounding techniques, meditation, journaling, breathwork to stay centered when the ego throws its tantrums. Third, reframe the discomfort. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What breakthrough is this resistance preparing me for?" Some of the most profound shifts happen right after the point where most people give up. That's why perseverance is a superpower. The storm isn't a sign you're off track. It's a sign you're breaking through the final walls of the old self. Remember, resistance intensifies not because you're failing, but because you're succeeding. You're stretching beyond the identity that once defined you. If you can endure the temporary chaos, you'll discover that the breakthrough was waiting on the other side all along. Once you've moved through resistance, something shifts. You stop fighting life and you begin flowing with it. This is what spiritual alignment feels like. A sense that your actions, thoughts, and intentions are synchronized with something greater than yourself. Instead of forcing outcomes, you step into a rhythm where opportunities arise naturally, synchronicities multiply, and life feels less like a struggle and more like a dance. Spiritual alignment doesn't mean life becomes perfect or free of challenges. It means you no longer approach those challenges from fear or scarcity. You begin to trust timing. You understand that when a door closes, it isn't rejection but redirection. That perspective alone saves enormous amounts of energy that used to be wasted in resistance. A key sign of alignment is synchronicity, those moments that feel too perfectly timed to be coincidences. Maybe you're thinking about making a change and someone suddenly offers advice or an opportunity in that exact direction. Or perhaps you're wrestling with a question and the answer appears in a book, a song lyric, or a conversation. These are reminders that when you align internally, the external world arranges itself to support you. Flow is another hallmark of alignment. In a flow state, you lose track of time because you're so immersed in the moment. Work feels effortless, creativity surges, and solutions appear without strain. This isn't luck, it's the result of aligning your actions with your authentic self. When you do what resonates with your higher purpose, energy flows naturally instead of draining you. Alignment also shifts your relationship with control. The old self tries to micromanage every detail, terrified of uncertainty. The aligned self understands that surrender is not weakness, but wisdom. It's the recognition that life has a larger perspective than you do, and that sometimes what looks like a delay or setback is actually perfect timing. When you surrender, you stop rowing against the current and let the river carry you forward. How do you cultivate spiritual alignment? Start by listening, not to the noise of fear or comparison, but to the quiet guidance of intuition. Pay attention to what feels expansive versus what feels heavy. Expansion points to alignment. Also, practice gratitude. It's a vibrational anchor that keeps you tuned to abundance rather than lack. And most importantly, give yourself permission to trust the process, even when you can't see the full path ahead. Spiritual alignment and flow are not distant ideals. They are available in every moment you choose presence over fear, surrender over control, and authenticity over pretense. When you align with your higher self, life doesn't just happen to you, it begins to happen through you, in harmony with the rhythm of the universe. Understanding the observer effect, identity, and energy is powerful, but without daily application, the insights fade. To truly shift your reality, you need simple, consistent practices that help you step into the role of conscious observer every day. These aren't complicated rituals. They're small but intentional habits that anchor you in awareness and keep you aligned with the new you. One morning awareness check. Start your day by asking, who am I being today? Before emails, before rushing into responsibilities, pause and set your state of being. Are you choosing to embody peace, confidence, openness? Write it down or affirm it aloud. This frames the day through conscious intention instead of unconscious habit. 2. Identity, rewiring journaling. Each evening, reflect on moments when you slipped back into the old self. Instead of judging, observe, what triggered me? How did I respond? Who do I want to be next time? This simple reflection rewires patterns by making the unconscious conscious. Over time, you'll notice yourself catching old behaviors in real time. 3. Energy, reset rituals. Throughout the day, pause for micro resets. This could be 3 deep breaths, stepping outside for a moment of sunlight, or closing your eyes to reconnect with your center. These mini practices interrupt emotional loops and keep you aligned with your chosen state. 4. Embody future self actions. Do one small thing daily that your future self would do. If your higher self is organized, clean one drawer. If they're financially abundant, save or invest a small amount. If they're confident, speak up once in a conversation. Tiny, consistent acts of embodiment compound into transformation. 5. Observer questioning. Whenever you feel stuck, ask, am I observing this as the old me or the new me? This question instantly creates space between your higher self and your reactive self. With that space, you can choose differently. 6. Silence and stillness. Spend at least a few minutes each day in silence. No distractions, no scrolling. In stillness, you reconnect with the deeper awareness behind thoughts and emotions. This strengthens your ability to observe rather than identify with passing states. 7. Gratitude anchoring. End your day by listing 3 things you're grateful for. Gratitude shifts your energy signature, tuning you into abundance. Over time, this becomes your natural baseline, attracting more experiences that match that vibration. The power of these practices lies in consistency. You don't need to master all at once. Choose 1 or 2 and build from there. As you integrate them, you'll notice subtle but undeniable shifts, more clarity, more alignment, and more synchronicities, confirming you're on the right path. Practical observer practices aren't about controlling reality. They're about shifting who you are as the observer. And once you shift your being, reality has no choice but to follow.